Welcome to this transformative journey, dear listener. We are delighted to have you with us as we embark on this powerful exploration of forgiveness and healing. I'm Mason, your narrator, and I'm honored to guide you through the wisdom and insights shared by the esteemed author, Rhonda Morris. Rhonda is renowned for her bestsellers, Let's Understand You Are Your Own Healer, and Let's Master Affirmations, and in this book, she delves deep into the transformative process of forgiveness. This audiobook offers more than just an exploration of forgiveness. It provides a practical guide to healing from past traumas, letting go of negative emotions, and finding the strength to forgive those who have hurt us. Whether you're struggling with the pain of a breakup or the sting of betrayal, Rhonda's compassionate and insightful approach will help you understand the profound effects of holding onto resentment and the liberating power of forgiveness. By listening to this book, you will discover a roadmap to emotional freedom, designed to help you move from a place of hurt to a state of peace and resilience. Rhonda's Forgiving Strategy and The Enchanting Way provide a comprehensive framework for building resilience and fostering a positive mindset. Through a blend of psychological research, personal stories, and spiritual wisdom, Rhonda guides you toward a deeper understanding of forgiveness. You'll learn practical techniques such as mindfulness meditation, Ho'oponopono, and cognitive restructuring, as well as practices like compassion meditation and writing forgiveness letters. These tools are not just theoretical, they are actionable steps you can take to cultivate inner peace and emotional calmness. As you listen to this audiobook, you'll gain valuable insights into the psychology of forgiveness, effective communication strategies for relationships, and ways to cope with setbacks. This is more than just a listening experience. It's an invitation to transform your life. By embracing the lessons and strategies shared in this book, you will be equipped to release emotional blockages, find clarity, and achieve a profound sense of calmness. We encourage you to listen fully and attentively, as this journey promises to be life-changing. Thank you for joining us, and we wish you a fulfilling and transformative experience. About the author. Rhonda Morris is a best-selling author and expert in the field of personal development and the law of attraction. With a passion for understanding human behavior and empowering others, she has dedicated her career to helping individuals unlock their full potential and live their best lives. Rhonda holds a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in counseling and computer science. Her diverse educational background enriches her approach to personal growth, blending insights from psychology with innovative technological solutions. With years of experience as a certified law of attraction coach, she has guided countless individuals on their journey to success and fulfillment. When she's not writing or coaching, Rhonda enjoys spending time outdoors with her family, exploring nature trails and indulging in her love for gourmet cooking. Based in sunny California, she finds inspiration in the beauty of her surroundings and is grateful for the opportunity to make a positive impact on the lives of others. Connect with Rhonda at morrisrhonda@gmail.com. Introduction. Quote, "Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hatred. It is a power that breaks the chains of bitterness and the shackles of selfishness." Unquote. Corrie ten Boom. Born on April 15, 1892, in Haarlem, Netherlands, Corrie ten Boom was the youngest of 4 children. Her parents, Caspar and Cornelia ten Boom, were devout Christians who ran a clock and watch shop in the city. Corrie grew up in a loving and caring family environment. Her parents instilled in her and her siblings a strong faith in God and a sense of responsibility toward others. As a child, she was known for her lively spirit and love of adventure. She was a skilled gymnast and enjoyed exploring the countryside with her siblings. In 1920, Corrie took over the family watchmaking business with her sister, Betsy. The 2 women were dedicated to their work and committed to helping the community. They often welcomed visitors into their home, providing food and shelter to those in need. In May 1940, Germany invaded the Netherlands, and life for Corrie and her family changed dramatically. Ten Booms were active in the Dutch resistance, helping to hide Jews and others targeted by the Nazis. They built a secret room in their home to hide people and other items, such as radios and forbidden literature. On February 28, 1944, the Gestapo raided Ten Boom's home. Corrie, Betsy, and their father were arrested and taken to a prison in Scheveningen. They were later transferred to a concentration camp in Vught, where they were subjected to harsh conditions and forced labor. In September 1944, Corrie and Betsy were transported to the Ravensbrück concentration camp in Germany. They were separated from their father, who died in prison in Scheveningen. Life in Ravensbrück was brutal, and the sisters were subjected to extreme cruelty and abuse. Despite the hardships, Corrie and Betsy remained committed to their faith and continued to offer hope and comfort to those around them. In December 1944, Betsy died in Ravensbrück. Corrie was devastated by the loss of her sister, but continued to hold on to her faith. She was eventually released from Ravensbrück in December 1944 due to a clerical error. She later learned that all the women in her age group had been sent to the gas chambers just 2 weeks after her release. After the war, Corrie returned to the Netherlands and dedicated her life to spreading the message of forgiveness and reconciliation. She founded a rehabilitation center for concentration camp survivors and traveled the world, speaking about her experiences and the power of forgiveness. A man who had worked as a guard at Ravensbrück approached Corrie while she was giving a speech in Munich, Germany, in 1947, and said, "He has become a Christian and has found forgiveness from God for his sins." He further asked for her forgiveness, too. Corrie later recounted that she struggled with conflicting emotions at that moment. On the one hand, she felt a deep anger and hatred toward the man for the cruelty he had inflicted on her and her loved ones. On the other hand, as a Christian, she was called to forgive others as God had forgiven her. Ultimately, Corrie took the man's hand and said she forgave him. This was really tough for her, as she wrote in her book, The Hiding Place. "Even as the angry, vengeful thoughts boiled through me, I saw the sin of them. Jesus Christ had died for this man, was I going to ask for more? Lord Jesus, I prayed, forgive me and help me to forgive him. I tried to smile, I struggled to raise my hand. I could not. I felt nothing, not the slightest spark of warmth or charity. And so again, I breathed a silent prayer. Jesus, I cannot forgive him. Give me your forgiveness." I stood there, one of the most wretched prisoners of all, and listened to the man's confession. And I had to forgive him, there was no other way. "I forgive you, brother," I cried. "With all my heart." She later said, "I discovered that it is not on our forgiveness any more than on our goodness that the world's healing hinges, but on his. When he tells us to love our enemies, he gives along with the command, the love itself." Corrie continued to travel and speak about forgiveness and reconciliation for many years. She authored several books, including The Hiding Place and Tramp for the Lord, which recount her experiences during the war and her journey of faith. Corrie passed away on April 15, 1983, on her 91st birthday. She left behind a legacy of forgiveness and compassion that inspires people today. The forgiveness of Corrie ten Boom is a powerful reminder that forgiveness is not easy, but it is essential for healing and reconciliation. Corrie's faith in God and belief in the power of forgiveness helped her overcome the traumas of war and reach out to those who had hurt her. I believe that Corrie's life story inspires anyone who has suffered injustice or hardship and seeks to find meaning and purpose in their pain. Corrie ten Boom's legacy of forgiveness reminds us that no matter how dark the world may seem, there is always hope for healing and reconciliation. What is the source of your discontentment? Let me ask you this. What if I told you that happiness is not just a fleeting emotion we experience once in a while, but it is actually our natural state of being? Yes, you heard me right. Through meditation and inner healing, many of us have come to understand that love is not just an emotion, but the very core of our being. By turning our attention inward and cultivating a deep sense of self-awareness, we can connect with the pure and unconditional love that resides within us. We are not just physical bodies, but spiritual beings temporarily residing in these vessels. When we view life from this perspective, we can begin to understand that happiness and love are inextricably linked. And the best part? Forgiveness can help us choose love over fear and peace over conflict, regardless of our circumstances. So why settle for anything less than the joy and contentment that is already within you? Choose love and forgiveness, and let happiness be your natural state of being. In today's world, the pursuit of happiness seems to be the ultimate goal of most people. We constantly search for happiness in material possessions, relationships, and accomplishments. But the truth is that happiness is not something that can be found outside ourselves. We may think we'll finally be happy once we have a certain amount of money, a particular job, or the perfect partner. However, the more we accumulate, the more we want, and we end up feeling frustrated, angry, and even hopeless. We often feel unhappy because we have been conditioned to believe that our happiness lies in external factors. Society tells us we must be successful, wealthy, and attractive to be happy. However, this is not true. Happiness is an inside job. It's a state of mind that comes from within and is not dependent on external circumstances. The trap we fall into is thinking that if we get what we want, we'll finally be happy. We start working tirelessly towards that goal, only to find ourselves still unhappy even after achieving it. This is because happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. We must cultivate a state of mind within ourselves, regardless of our external circumstances. The world has many things that can tempt us and make us feel unhappy, or like we don't have enough money or things. We blame our unhappiness on the people around us, our circumstances, or the temptations surrounding us. We start feeling trapped by life as if we have no control over our own happiness. So, what is this thing inside us that makes us always look for happiness in things outside of ourselves? It's our ego. Our egos are focused on things outside of us and make us think that the world is unfair and that we'll be harmed if we're not careful. The ego likes it when we think we're victims because it can feel satisfied. This is when we start looking for faults in others and things around us, trying to find someone or something to blame for our unhappiness. When forgiveness comes into the picture, our feelings of unhappiness are magnified whenever we judge other people, hold on to grievances, or cling to blame and guilt. We become trapped in a cycle of negativity, constantly searching for something or someone to blame for our unhappiness. This is where forgiveness comes in. Forgiveness is a transformational process that can help us break free from this cycle of negativity. It's not about condoning the actions of others or forgetting what has happened. It's about releasing ourselves from the negative emotions and thoughts holding us back. When we forgive others, we let go of the negative emotions that we've been carrying around, such as anger, resentment, and blame. We free ourselves from the burden of holding on to the past and move forward with a renewed sense of purpose and hope. Forgiveness is not only good for our emotional well-being, but it also has physical health benefits. Studies have shown that forgiveness can lower blood pressure, reduce stress, and improve overall health. However, forgiveness is not just about forgiving others. It's also about forgiving ourselves. We often hold on to guilt and blame for mistakes that we've made in the past, and this can hold us back from living a fulfilling life. When we forgive ourselves, we let go of the negative self-talk holding us back, and we can move forward with confidence and self-love. In forthcoming chapters, we'll explore more on this topic and learn how forgiveness first changes our mindset and eventually our overall lifestyle. The story time. There was a successful businessman named John. John was known for being tough, demanding, and frequently provocative. He was a man who rarely forgave others for their mistakes, and he always held grudges against those who wronged him. One day, John received a phone call from Switzerland. It was his sister, who was calling to inform him about the death of their mother. The news hit John hard. It left him feeling devastated. He hadn't talked to his mother in years because of their falling out over a business deal. As John traveled to Switzerland for his mother's funeral, he couldn't help but think about how he had let his judgments and grudges get in the way of his relationship with his mother. He realized that he had been holding on to his anger for too long, and that it was time to let it go. During the funeral, John heard a quote that stuck with him: "Love is letting go of fear." He thought about this quote and how it related to his situation. He realized his fear of being taken advantage of had caused him to hold onto his anger and grudges for too long. After the funeral, John visited a 90-year-old lady who had been a close friend of his mother. She showed John a painting his mother had made just before she passed away. The picture was a beautiful representation of forgiveness and letting go of judgments. As John looked at the painting, he thought about the teachings of Jesus Christ and how forgiveness was an essential part of his message. He realized that forgiveness was important not only for his relationships with others, but also for his own peace of mind. John returned home a changed man. He began to practice forgiveness in all aspects of his life, and he found that it brought him a sense of peace that he had never experienced before. He learned that holding on to grudges and judgments only brought him pain, and that forgiveness was the key to letting go of that pain. We often hear stories about how forgiveness can help us let go of painful experiences from the past. It might be hard to believe that changing our thinking can make such a big difference, but John's story shows us that forgiveness can even help us after someone has died. The bad things seem less significant now, allowing us to redirect our attention toward the love that has always existed. This love will always be there, no matter what. Understanding forgiveness. Dear listener, have you ever experienced hurtful words or actions from someone else? You likely have. Perhaps a parent's criticism affected your self-esteem, a colleague's sabotage undermined your hard work, or your partner's infidelity left you feeling betrayed and heartbroken. These wounds can be profound and leave lasting feelings of resentment, bitterness, and anger. It's important to acknowledge that these feelings are entirely valid and understandable. However, holding on to this pain can negatively affect your well-being. When you hold on to resentment and anger, you allow the person who hurt you to continue to have power over your emotions and thoughts. You may find yourself becoming consumed by negative thoughts, unable to let go of the past and move forward with your life. Do you realize it's super easy to hold a grudge? It's a fact of life that being hurt by someone, especially by someone you care about and trust, can be an incredibly difficult experience. The range of emotions that come with it, such as anger, sadness, and confusion, can be overwhelming and leave you feeling stuck in a negative space. However, if you allow yourself to dwell on these hurtful events, you run the risk of allowing grudges filled with resentment and hostility to take root. This can lead to a life consumed by negative feelings, where bitterness and a sense of injustice take over. But it's important to remember that forgiveness is a powerful tool for moving forward and finding peace. Some people may be naturally more forgiving than others, but that doesn't mean learning how to be more forgiving is impossible. What if you hold a grudge for a long? Holding a grudge for a long time can have serious negative consequences on your life. It can bring anger and bitterness into new relationships and experiences, leaving you unable to fully engage and enjoy the present moment. You may find yourself constantly dwelling on the past and unable to move forward. This can lead to various emotional and mental health issues, such as depression, anxiety, and irritability. It can also conflict with your spiritual beliefs, as holding on to grudges goes against many teachings about forgiveness and letting go. But perhaps the most heartbreaking consequence of holding a grudge is losing valuable and enriching connections with others. When you hold on to resentment and anger towards someone, you close yourself off from the possibility of forgiveness and reconciliation. This can lead to broken relationships and a sense of loneliness and isolation. So, what is forgiveness and how can it save you? When you choose to forgive, you open yourself to finding peace and hope. Take a moment to think about how forgiveness can guide you toward better physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Forgiveness can mean different things to different people, but at its core, it involves making a conscious decision to release any bitterness and resentment. When you view forgiveness through the lens of love and spirit, it becomes an act of releasing the painful past. The memory of the hurtful act may stay with you, but choosing to forgive can lessen its hold on you. By forgiving, you can break free from the control of the person who caused you harm. Forgiveness can sometimes lead to understanding, empathy, and compassion for the person who hurt you. Forgiveness is a powerful choice that allows you to no longer suffer and start to heal your heart and soul. It means choosing not to hold on to hatred or anger and letting go of the desire to seek revenge. It helps you overcome the pain of the past and create a brighter future for yourself. Forgiveness is not forgetting or excusing the harm someone has done to you. It doesn't always mean you must make up with that person either. Forgiveness is about finding inner peace and moving forward with your life. It means opening your heart to see the good in others instead of judging or condemning them. Forgiveness helps you feel compassion, gentleness, tenderness, and caring that is always within your heart. It's the way to a place of inner peace, happiness, and your soul. This place of peace is always available to you, but sometimes you don't see it because you're too attached to anger. It's easy to think that holding on to anger or seeking revenge will bring you peace of mind, but forgiveness is the journey that takes you there. It's like crossing a bridge to a new world of expanding, unconditional love. Forgiveness is like a bright light that leads you out of the darkness. It helps you recognize yourself as the light of the world and move on from past hurts, whether they're your own or someone else's. When you forgive someone, it can help you escape from the negative emotions like fear and anger that you've been holding on to. You don't have to be stuck in a mental prison because of your own mistakes or the mistakes of others. Forgiveness can help you release those hurts and allow you to experience the love of God. It's a place where only love exists and nothing else. And in that beautiful space, there's never anything left to forgive because you're surrounded by pure love. What can forgiveness offer you? Get ready to be inspired, because I am about to share a beautiful passage about forgiveness that I came across in A Course in Miracles. This passage highlights the tremendous benefits that can be ours through forgiveness. There is a quote, "Forgiveness offers everything that I want." Think about it, what could you want that forgiveness cannot give? Do you long for peace? Forgiveness can offer it. Do you seek happiness, a quiet mind, a sense of purpose, and a feeling of worth and beauty beyond the material world? Forgiveness can provide all of that and more. Do you desire safety, care, and the warmth of pure protection always? Forgiveness can give you that. It can offer you deep comfort, a quietness that cannot be disturbed, and a gentleness that can never be hurt. Forgiveness can even give you a rest so perfect that it can never be upset. Can you imagine waking up to a world where forgiveness sparkles in your eyes and fills you with joy to tackle the day ahead? That's the power of forgiveness. It doesn't stop there, because it soothes your forehead while you sleep and rests upon your eyelids, ensuring you don't have any dreams of fear, evil, malice, or attack. When you wake up, you experience another day of happiness and peace that forgiveness offers you, and that's not all. Forgiveness has so much more to offer than we can imagine. So embrace forgiveness today, and allow it to fill your life with endless blessings and abundance. Happiness or righteousness. Once upon a time, two kids were playing in a sandbox in a small town in America. They were best friends, always playing together and sharing their toys. But one day, as they were playing, one of the kids got angry and stormed off with his toy truck. He yelled at his friend, "I hate your guts. I'm never going to talk to you again." The other kid was heartbroken and didn't understand why his friend was upset. He wanted to apologize, but he didn't know how. So he just waited and hoped his friend would return to him. Days passed, and the two kids didn't speak to each other. But one day, while playing in the park, they bumped into each other. They both looked at each other and didn't say a word. But then one of them threw a ball at the other, and soon they were laughing and enjoying the day just like they used to. Their parents observed from a distance and marveled at how quickly the two kids forgave each other. They wondered, how do kids do that? How do they let go of their anger and choose happiness over righteousness? The truth was simple. The kids understood the power of forgiveness. They knew that holding a grudge hurt them, and that forgiveness was the key to healing and moving forward. They let go of their anger and embraced their friendship again. Forgiveness matters, and it matters a lot. It's not just a nice thing to do, it's a crucial step in your own personal growth and well-being. Why? Because when you forgive, you choose happiness over righteousness. Choosing forgiveness over righteousness means letting go of the need to be right or to exact revenge. It means recognizing that holding on to anger, bitterness, and resentment only hurts you in the long run. When you forgive, you let go of negative emotions and focus instead on positive ones, such as compassion, understanding, and empathy. In his book, The Art of Forgiving, Lewis Smedes writes, "Forgiving is the only remedy for the pain the offender left us with, the only way to heal the hurt he caused." As a mentor, life coach, and author, I want to share how forgiveness has been promoted as a new cure, all for both your mind and body. It's been marketed as a healing medicine that can alleviate depression, unease, persistent animosity, high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, cancer, and even weakened immunity. Furthermore, it has also been claimed to mend emotional wounds, restore broken relationships, and rejuvenate a sense of self that may have been fractured. From a spiritual perspective, forgiveness is often promoted as a means of personal growth and transformation. Many religious traditions emphasize the importance of forgiveness and view it as a way to connect with a higher power or a greater sense of purpose. Forgiveness becomes a way to let go of ego and cultivate compassion, leading to greater inner peace and spiritual growth. Another way that forgiveness has been promoted is through psychology and counseling. Therapists often use forgiveness as a therapeutic tool to help clients heal from past traumas, resolve conflicts, and improve relationships. Forgiveness becomes a tool to release negative emotions, promote healing, and promote empathy and compassion towards oneself and others. What forgiveness is not. Forgiveness does not mean justice is ignored. Instead, it creates a space for justice to be enacted without the need for revenge. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It requires courage and strength to face the hurt, process it, and work toward healing. Forgiveness is not a short process, and it can take several journeys through the cycles of remembering and grief before one can truly forgive and be free. Forgiveness is not synonymous with forgetting. Rather, it requires a fearless remembering of the hurt inflicted. Forgiveness is not easy. It requires hard work and a consistent willingness to let go of the pain and hurt caused by others. A few thought-provoking questions for you. Are you inspired by those who forgive, even when it seems impossible? Do you admire the strength and courage it takes to let go of anger and bitterness, and instead choose compassion and forgiveness? Think about the parents who forgive the person who took their child's life. Can you imagine the pain and heartache they must feel? And yet, they find a way to forgive. Or the woman who forgives her rapist. Choosing forgiveness in such a traumatic situation takes a special kind of bravery. Can you imagine that? And what about the man who forgives those who tortured him brutally? His act of forgiveness is nothing short of heroic. Let me make one thing clear: forgiveness is not a weakness. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a choice that takes strength and courage. Even when we get angry, forgiveness is still possible. It doesn't mean we're spineless or don't stand up for what's right. We can still be angry and fight for justice while also choosing to forgive. I've come across individuals who demonstrated compassion and forgiveness even when faced with extremely challenging circumstances and subjected to terrible mistreatment. I want to tell you about Bishop Malusi Mpumlawana's powerful story of forgiveness, healing, and reconciliation, which really impressed me when I first read it. I believe it's worth sharing, and I hope you find it as inspiring as I did. It goes like this. In the early 1990s, Mpumlawana was an anti-apartheid activist and member of the African National Congress, ANC, in South Africa, which was fighting to end the racist regime of apartheid. In 1993, Mpumlawana's brother, Zolael, was brutally murdered by a group of white right-wing extremists who opposed the ANC's efforts to end apartheid. The murder deeply affected Mpumlawana. He struggled with anger and bitterness toward his brother's killers. However, in the years following the end of apartheid and establishing a democratic government in South Africa, Mpumlawana began to reconsider his feelings toward his brother's killers. In 2011, he decided to publicly forgive his brother's killers as an act of reconciliation. In a statement to the press, he explained that he forgave them not because they deserved it, but because he needed to free himself from the burden of anger and bitterness. So, let's aspire to be forgiving people. Let's be inspired by those who forgive, even in the most challenging circumstances. And let's remember that forgiveness is a choice that takes true strength and courage. Chapter number 1. Why it's difficult to forgive. Quote, "Forgiveness is not always easy. At times, it feels more painful than the wound we suffered to forgive the one that inflicted it. And yet there is no peace without forgiveness." Unquote. Marianne Williamson. Here's a true story from Bassam Araman's life that always inspires me when it comes to forgiveness. Who is Bassam Araman? Bassam Araman, who was once a committed militant ready to engage in violent conflict, experienced the profound tragedy of losing his 10-year-old daughter Abir to an Israeli soldier on her way back from school on January 16, 2007. Even though he was deeply saddened by the loss of his loved one, he decided to do something surprising. He wanted to understand the person he saw as his enemy and stop the cycle of revenge in himself and the world around him. I want to present below what he says in his story. As a child, I fought the occupation by raising the Palestinian flag in our playground. We never felt safe. We were always running from jeeps to avoid the soldiers beating us. Our homes were invaded and children were killed. At the age of 12, I joined a demonstration where a boy was shot by a soldier. I watched him die in front of me. From that moment, I developed a deep need for revenge. I became part of a group whose mission was to get rid of the catastrophe that had come to our town. We called ourselves freedom fighters, but the outside world called us terrorists. At first, we just threw stones and empty bottles, but when we came across some discarded hand grenades in a cave, we decided to hurl them at the Israeli jeeps. 2 of them exploded. No one was injured, but we were caught, and in 1985, at the age of 17, I received a 7-year prison sentence. He further says, "In prison, we were treated like heroes by the other prisoners, but our jailers taught us how to continue hating and resisting. On October 1, 1987, 120 of us, all teenage boys, were waiting to go into the dining room when the alarms suddenly went off. Over 100 armed soldiers then suddenly appeared and ordered us to strip naked. They beat us until we could hardly stand. I was held the longest and beaten the hardest. What struck me was that all the soldiers wore smiles on their faces. They were beating us without hatred because this was just a training exercise for them, and they saw us as objects." He continues, "As I was being beaten, I remembered a movie I'd seen the year before about the Holocaust. At the time, I was happy that Hitler killed 6 million Jews. I remember wishing he'd killed them all, because then I would never have been sent to prison. But some minutes into the movie, I cried and felt angry that the Jews were being herded into gas chambers without fighting back. If they knew they would die, why didn't they scream out? I tried to hide my tears from the other prisoners, who wouldn't have understood why I was crying about the pain of my oppressors. It was the first time I felt empathy. So now, walking between the soldiers who were beating me, I remembered the movie and started screaming out at them, 'Murderers! Nazis! Oppressors!' And as a consequence, I felt no pain. The incident with the soldiers made me realize that we had to preserve our humanity, our right to laugh and cry, to save ourselves. I also slowly realized that the Israeli oppression was because of the Holocaust, and I decided to try to understand who the Jews were." He explains how he realized that the only way to peace was through nonviolence. This led to a conversation with a prison guard. The guards all thought of us as terrorists, and we hated them, but this guard asked me, "How can someone quiet like you become a terrorist?" I replied, "No, you're the terrorist. I'm a freedom fighter." He really believed that we, the Palestinians, were the settlers, not the Israelis. I said, "If you can convince me that we are the settlers, then I'll declare this in front of all the prisoners." It was the start of a dialogue and a friendship. We discovered many similarities, and some months later, the guard said he understood now that we were not the settlers. He even became a supporter of the Palestinian struggle. From then on, he always treated us with respect, and once even smuggled in 2 big bottles of Coca-Cola, which I shared with all the other prisoners. Seeing how this transformation happened through dialogue and without force made me realize that the only way to peace was through nonviolence. Our dialogue enabled us both to see each other's purity of heart and good intent. When I was released, it was the time of the Oslo Accords, and there was a great feeling of hope for a two-state solution. But it never happened because the politicians said we weren't ready for it. I think if I hadn't had such strong beliefs and principles, anger would have taken over. It wasn't until 2005 that some of us who believed in non-violence started meeting in secret with former Israeli soldiers. We were meeting as true enemies who wanted to speak. The Israelis were refusing to fight, not for the sake of the Palestinian people, but for the sake of the morals of their society. We too were not acting to save Israeli lives, but to prevent our society from suffering more. It was only later that we both came to feel responsible for each other's people. The story doesn't end here, it actually starts hereafter. There is a much darker side to my story. On January 16, 2007, my 10-year-old daughter, Abir, was shot and killed in cold blood by a member of the Israeli border police while standing outside her school with some classmates. There were no demonstrations or violence or intifada. I was appalled by the details of what happened, not least that she had just bought candy at the store and hadn't had time to eat it. Despite the immense pain and grief he experienced after losing his daughter, Bassam chose to respond with a message of peace and forgiveness. He understood that blaming and seeking revenge would only perpetuate the cycle of violence and harm, and instead, he committed himself to promoting reconciliation and nonviolence. He further says, "I want to bring this man to justice because he killed my 10-year-old daughter, not because he's an Israeli and I'm a Palestinian, but because my child was neither a fighter nor a Fatah or Hamas member. For there to be reconciliation, and for me to consider forgiveness, Israel has to recognize such crimes." What a profound sense of forgiveness. He says, "Abir's murder could have led me down the easy path of hatred and vengeance, but for me, there was no return from dialogue and nonviolence. After all, one Israeli soldier shot my daughter, but 100 former Israeli soldiers built a garden in her name at the school where she was murdered." Why you can't forgive? Let me give a few quotations on forgiveness. Quote, "To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you." Unquote. Louis B. Smedes. Quote, "Forgiveness is not an occasional act, it is a permanent attitude." Unquote. Martin Luther King, Jr. Quote, "Forgiveness is the final form of love." Unquote. Reinhold Niebuhr. In general, we all agree with the above quotes. Right? Yet we still fall short when it comes to showing one another forgiveness. Ever questioned why? Perhaps the most straightforward answer is, we don't want to. But there is more to it than that. Because we don't know what forgiveness really is, we don't forgive. When we follow the advice of the ego, which claims that punishing the person who injured us and withholding our affection from them is the right thing to do, forgiving is challenging. We have arrogant egos that try to persuade us that it is better and safer for us to hate than it is for us to love, which makes it challenging to forgive. Contrary to what you may have been taught, forgiving someone doesn't mean you must like them. If you wait for that to happen, you might never be able to forgive some individuals, since their actions will always make you feel bad when you think about them, even if that emotion quickly subsides as a result of practice over time. Forgiveness, in financial terms, means canceling a debt. When you forgive someone, you choose to act as if they don't owe you anything, not even an apology. This doesn't mean that people shouldn't face the consequences of their actions, or that justice shouldn't be served. Forgiveness is simply about freeing your heart from the burden of collecting from someone else. Personally, I think we might be a little crazy if we don't allow ourselves to experience and express love. When you're stressed, or things aren't going well in your life, you can become attached to the voice of the ego, that part of your mind that tells you to hold on to grudges and not forgive others. But you have a choice to make. You can listen to the voice of love, which encourages you to forgive and let go. However, it's important to remember that your emotions can be tricky and unreliable. They can be affected by things like your physical state, such as low blood sugar or hormonal imbalances, making it hard to make rational decisions. Instead, you should make a conscious choice in your heart and mind to forgive and commit to that decision, even if your feelings fluctuate. For example, imagine you're having a tough time at work with much stress and pressure. Factors like lack of sleep, high caffeine intake, or a challenging work environment might affect your emotional state. During this time, you might be more prone to negative thinking and find it harder to forgive others, especially if they make mistakes or cause you stress. However, you could recognize that your emotions are being influenced by external factors and consciously choose to forgive and let go of any grudges you're holding onto. The voice of ego. The ego's voice is a powerful force that can hold you back from living a life of love, compassion, and forgiveness. It always comes from a place of fear, which creates conflict and disturbs your sense of peace. It is that part of your mind that is driven by self-interest and a sense of separation from others. When you become attached to the ego's voice, you are more likely to hear its messages and believe you should not forgive others. Listening to this voice will give you many reasons why you should not forgive, even though holding on to anger and resentment only causes you to suffer and lose your sense of inner peace. One reason why the voice of the ego does not allow you to forgive others is that it is focused on protecting your sense of self. The ego sees forgiveness as a threat because it requires you to let go of your attachment to being right or justified in your anger or resentment towards others. When you forgive, you release the ego's hold on you and open yourself up to a new way of being in the world, one that is centered on love, connection, and peace. The ego's voice can also prevent you from forgiving others by convincing you that you are justified in your anger or resentment towards them. It can create a false sense of superiority or moral high ground, making you feel like you are doing the right thing by holding onto your negative feelings towards others. However, this only keeps you stuck in a cycle of negativity and prevents you from experiencing the freedom and peace that comes with forgiveness. Therefore, it's essential to recognize the ego's voice for what it is and choose to listen to the voice of love and forgiveness instead. Let me provide you with 25 points rooted in the ego's reasoning that prevent you from forgiving others. Number 1. You believe that forgiveness means condoning the other person's behavior. Number 2. You feel that the other person hasn't apologized or shown remorse for their actions, so why forgive them? Number 3. You believe that if you forgive, you'll become weak and lose your power. Number 4. You feel that forgiving the other person will make them vulnerable to further hurt or harm. Number 5. You believe that the other person doesn't deserve forgiveness. Number 6. You think you need to reconcile with the other person or maintain a relationship with them to forgive. Number 7. You have this perception in mind that forgiving the other person will mean forgetting what happened. Number 8. You feel that forgiving the other person will minimize or invalidate your own pain and suffering. Consciously or unconsciously, you want to keep that pain and suffering forever somewhere in your mind. Number 9. You believe that holding on to anger and resentment is a way to protect yourself from being hurt again. Number 10. You consider forgiving the other person as betraying others who were also hurt by their actions. Number 11. You have this notion in your mind that forgiving the other person will not change anything and that they will continue to behave in the same way. Number 12. You feel the other person has not suffered enough consequences for their actions. Number 13. You believe that forgiving the other person will be seen as excusing or justifying their behavior to others. Number 14. You think that forgiveness requires a level of emotional maturity or spiritual development that you do not possess. Number 15. You feel that forgiving the other person will require you to relinquish your sense of justice or desire for revenge. Number 16. You have this in your mind: forgiving the other person will be seen as a sign of approval or acceptance of their behavior. Number 17. You feel that forgiveness is impossible because the other person's actions were too hurtful or traumatic. Number 18. You believe forgiveness is a one-time event rather than a process that may take time and effort. Number 19. You understand that forgiveness is too hard or painful, and that it is easier to hold on to anger and resentment. Number 20. You always remind yourself that the other person's actions were intentional or premeditated. This makes it harder to forgive. Number 21. You think that forgiving the other person means you have to trust them again, which may not be possible. Number 22. You think that if you forgive others, you have to forget what happened, which may not be realistic or healthy. Number 23. You believe forgiving the other person will require you to suppress or deny your true feelings about what happened. Number 24. You have this notion in your mind that forgiveness is a form of self-abandonment, and that holding on to anger and resentment is a way to protect yourself. Number 25. You consider that forgiving the other person means giving up your right to be angry or hurt about what happened. So do this, the meditation. If you find that the ego's voice is preventing you from forgiving others, what should you do? First, take some time to familiarize yourself with this list of ego statements and be aware of them as you go about your day. Pay attention to your thoughts and feelings and notice when you hear these statements in your mind. When you recognize them, remind yourself that you have a choice between the voice of ego and love and forgiveness. This meditation will help you in this situation. Find a quiet and comfortable place to sit and begin this meditation by closing your eyes lightly. Take a few deep breaths and settle into the rhythm of your breath. As you breathe, allow yourself to imagine a cloak of safety surrounding you like a fabric. Pay attention to the texture of this cloak. Does it have a color or a fragrance? Is it warm or cool? Fully immerse yourself in this safe space, pulling the cloak around you and feeling protected. As you settle into this safe space, consider the person or situation you need to forgive. Take a deep breath and exhale slowly, releasing any tension or negative feelings you may be holding on to. Allow yourself to feel the love and happiness surrounding you in this safe space, and let go of any attachment to the ego's reasoning that may be preventing you from forgiving. As you breathe deeply, repeat to yourself, I choose to let go of the past and forgive. I am surrounded by love and happiness, and choose to live in this state of forgiveness. Allow this mantra to fill your mind and heart, replacing negative thoughts or emotions with positivity and compassion. When you feel ready to end this meditation, take a few more deep breaths and slowly open your eyes. Remember that this cloak of safety is always within reach, and that you can return to this state of forgiveness and love whenever you need it. In the upcoming chapters, we will explore ways to better hear the voice of forgiveness and cultivate it in our lives. Remember, the journey toward forgiveness is a process that requires patience, self-reflection, and commitment. Stay engaged, continue listening, and remember that you have the power to choose love and forgiveness over fear and resentment.